such an asshole.
Hello, children. We have another request from our, as I humorously call him, North Korean agent in the field, but he could very well be a North Korean agent. He's definitely foreign. We don't know. But I do know he's foreign. I'm pretty sure. But he comes from, I wouldn't say the other side of the wall, because the wall, the Soviet Western dichotomy is kind of different nowadays. But he comes from an Eastern philosophy or an Eastern culture, I would say. And he wanted my opinion on this speech done by Vladimir Putin, titled Signing of Treaties on Ascension of Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republic and, oh my goodness, Zaporizhzhia and the Kherson regions to Russia. Then I clicked on it, and it's from the Kremlin. And so, of course, here at the freedom of speech country, we're not allowed access to that. And so I said, can you send me the article? The speech he did. Oh, excuse me. Heavens. And so I posted it on my blog, which is also linked below. So if you want to read it, it's a lengthy speech. And he says, so what are your thoughts on this speech from Vladimir Putin? Couldn't read it. Then he sent it to me. So let me go through my notes. I spent about 45 minutes reading it here. 2 pages of notes. Which one? Okay, here we go. All right, I got to start on page 1. All right. So this is Vladimir Putin's speech, well, I believe it's to the Russian legislature or Duma or whatever they call it. And he has basically given his rationalization, an explanation as why they're going to annex those previous regions where the ethnic Russians are on the eastern part of Ukraine. So he provides a very simple argument at the beginning, basically that during the Soviet collapse or post-Soviet collapse, when the various Soviet republics went on and became their own countries, these lines were somewhat arbitrarily drawn, and a lot of ethnic Russians got left behind these lines and in countries that technically, they're not Russian. They may be Slavic or Russian influence, but they're not Russian. I would ask, well, why didn't they move to Russia then in the past 30 years? But I was only a lowly paid sovereign analyst back in my day. These Russians in the eastern part of Ukraine were harassed, targeted, attacked, which is his argument that Russia should go over there and annex these properties, these territories. There was an election, whether or not it was authentic or not. I'm not here to argue that. I'm just giving his argument, summarizing the speech for you. And they voted, I guess, overwhelmingly to join Russia. And then also he cites an expansion of NATO, and even cited it going back into Russian history, which I think was overkill, about Napoleon and a guy with a funny mustache. And so I was thinking, like, all right, that was the first 5-10 minutes of the speech I'd imagine he was talking about. And maybe I'm impatient. Maybe I ain't got the time. But I'm like, okay, I get it. Those are your main reasons why you did it. All right. Then I got to imagine this was a 45-minute speech. This was long. The vast majority, aside from the conclusion at the end, the rest of it is what I think was completely unnecessary and overcomplicated the argument, introducing aspects, whole new arguments, reasons that I was like, okay, one, something that I completely outright disagree with. It's like, do you know Soviet history? You were part of it. Some that I just think weren't all that germane and really did Putin a disservice. Now, maybe he was preaching to the choir. Maybe this was all, this is a pep rally. But to anyone outside of Russia, especially if you're in the West, especially if you're in the United States, you're like, so I would have to say, and look, I'm no big fan of the United States government right now. Some of these things Putin is absolutely dead accurate about. But some of these I'm like, no matter who's in charge now, that's kind of wrong or unfair or not germane or irrelevant to your overarching argument. And so a couple of things I put here: neocolonialism, even regular colonialism. He went back. Um, if you mean by the United States trying to wield and peddle its influence across the world, I could see where the United States would get annoying. I could see where it get tiresome. Colonialism, though, is just a little bit too much of a word. He uses words like vassal states. Like, okay, France is our ally, but is it a vassal state? Not really. Now, Ukraine, I haven't studied it, but I do know the Bidens had some dealies going on there. That might be. You might be right. But I don't know, maybe I just have a distaste for the word colonialism because I already believe colonialism, like traditional one, like no, 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 no. That's just what leftists use to complain because, like, oh my God, 300, 400, 500, 600 years ago, one group of people invaded the other group, but like everybody else, literally, like everyone else. All right. Um, and I could see where the United States abusing its world reserve currency status. Yeah, there. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, look, you could just tell them no. How many years have we been waiting for a brick world reserve currency alternative? There are some measures going and being taken by different countries to not use the dollar as the denominating currency to have contracts, international trade contracts in. But oh my God, you're just say no. Say no. He uses terms like enslavement and hegemony. Like, no, that's over the top. The United States doesn't enslave you. Oh, before I go with neocolonialism, oh, you mean like when terrorists fly planes into our buildings, we're like, okay, that's it. We're taking you out. Yeah, darn right. Darn right. Well, the United States has a bunch of military bases. I agree. We don't need them in Germany. We don't need them in Japan. I'd say we still need them in South Korea, and maybe that's why they're in Japan as well to limit North Korea. But this is not enslavement or hegemony. Hegemony maybe, but not enslavement. Accusations of the American empire, like what? In a classical sense, like we send our troops in and do exactly as we tell you. I think we left Afghanistan, we left Iraq. And here throughout this, I'll make the point now. Like it's you. I was shocked at his fealty. He's got a soft spot for the Soviet Empire. I mean, oh, like you went into Afghanistan and Vietnam and Korea, and more clandestinely Africa and Central America. What really? And that's one thing where I lost a fair amount of respect for Vladimir Putin. Where I'm like, wait a minute. The American Empire? What about the Soviet Empire? At least we allow for elections. Yeah. The Soviets just sat and did nothing. What else? He is correct. He made some points about how the West, particularly America, is mentally ill and debauched. I would absolutely agree with that. He talks about how, like, and he's right. He nailed it. It's like, do you want to have parent number one, parent number two, parent number three? Your children are taught to go through sexual surgery and all that other stuff. And he's 100% right. He's 100% right. The woke leftist culture, Vladimir, if you're listening, sir. Wasn't it your guys that went through the soft underbelly of the United States in the 50s and 60s and 70s and convinced the education system? Yuri Bezmenov, remember that guy? What he was saying? Oh my gosh. Remember when we infiltrated those guys like 50, 60 years ago and we had that plan? Oh my God, can you believe the plan worked? Look at how debauched they are. Oh, that's bad. It's like you send them here. You started it. This one I found hilarious. He mentioned a couple times about how the West, particularly the United States, came in to plunder and loot the Soviet Empire, both when it was the Soviet Empire during World War II. I guess in World War I, it was more Western nations, so okay. But certainly World War II is like, oh, they plundered and looted. And then after the collapse of the Soviet Empire, he plundered the Soviet resources. I'm like, okay, my good sir, what resources? What loot? It's the classic quote from Kelly's Heroes. You should watch it. You enjoy the movie where Telly Savalas, the captain's leaving and is like, and no looting. Stay here, get some R&R, and whatever you do, don't loot. And Telly Savalas says, loot what? There's nothing here to loot. What exactly were we going to loot out of the Soviet Empire? What, some trobbies? Like some potatoes that were like really old? There was no wealth to loot. Based on my research many years ago when I was a sexy young sovereign analyst, the various reports came in like, well, what was the Soviet standard of living compared to the United States? And different methods were used. And they came in, that's about 25%. And we're talking like 25% GDP. So like that obviously had to be important things like food, clothing, shelter. Bread lines. I remember even that in the 80s. Like, no, they got bread lines. You gotta wait for bread. What? I mean, you're talking your natural resources, but I'm so sick and tired of that act. You're just doing it for oil. It's like, all right, we could have done that easily, way more easily if we wanted to. Where did we come in? Where did the West ever come in? Like, oh yeah, we want your timber. Or, you're not using Siberia. We want to use. We're gonna get those rare earth materials. We'll go into site. It's New Alaska. And he does have a legitimate currency criticism of the dollar being used as a world reserve currency. But again, you don't have to trade with the United States. China, I don't know why they have that outdated mercantilist slash fascist economic model. I mean, fascist in the pejorative sense. I mean, in its literal use of the word. And I'm just like, why? I wouldn't. Like the United States and Argentina, two of the most deadbeat countries in the entire Western Hemisphere. Why do you conduct? Why? Why would you? And slowly but surely, due to U.S. sanctions, Russia's like, oh, geez, maybe we ought to think of other countries. Like, maybe you should. And I will agree if we're talking neocolonialism and hegemony, is where the United States has like, oh, we all have to be on this financial service. We have to be on this payment processor. We have to that is a true monopoly, I think is the word you might be looking for. That's dangerous. Because if you got a monopoly on the whatever, these global infrastructure systems, whether it's payment, electronic banking systems, you should have an alternative. Absolutely. So I do agree there. And I will also agree, he doesn't mention it specifically, but all right, you're worried about the world reserve currency. I'd be more worried about the United States exporting what you exported to us 50, 60 years ago. Marxist, communist, feminist type of stuff. But today, that virus has mutated into wokeism, where now it's like we celebrate traits. And if we don't have any traits that are celebrated, we create some, thereby going insane, claiming we have mental illnesses when we don't, or we're types of genders when we're not. All right. Oh my God, aren't we brave and amazing? Celebrate. All right. So I would worry about that coming to a country near you. I mean, even China, didn't they have to go down and start cracking down on all the boys and the girls worshiping these effeminate looking K-pop stars? Like they had a masculinity crisis in China. Partly influenced by the West. Can't deny that South Korea, that was some Western influence. What is South Korea considered? I mean, it's Eastern, but it's also Western influenced. So, but, and you could take these arguments that he added on top of it. I don't think they're germane or relevant to the issue at hand when it comes to Ukraine. I think his first 10 minutes put it very clearly. Some ethnic Russians got caught behind different borders. Why didn't they move? Don't know. Why did they stay there for 30 years? Why didn't they go and get jobs in Russia? Why didn't they leave and migrate in the past 30 years? Don't know. Set that aside. And if they were being harassed and ethnic Russians were being attacked, okay, there's a logic there. I get it. I also agree with the expansion of NATO, which is my stupid, simple, former sovereign analyst mind would say, Why couldn't we just talk about, right, really, really? It was NATO? Why is it, I gotta know why my team, why is NATO expanding? Which I've made my opinion very clear. I thought we were friends, and now we're really gonna reintroduce the Cold War with a Russia, non-Soviet Russia. Because what? We couldn't just let them be? I legit thought we were friends. I was even looking forward to I wanted to ride across Russia on my motorcycle. The problem is that there's the Trans-Siberian Railroad, but that other road, there's a trans road, but it's not paved, and I'm like, okay. And you need certain types of bikes to because not every. Never mind. So there's that. Now, some unfair criticisms that undermine my faith in Putin's argument. It was one of his fondness of this. It's his fondness of the Soviet Empire. I'm pretty convinced that he has a fondness for it. It was a despicable and evil empire that did not allow democracy. That's one thing I couldn't. He kind of contradicts himself. He's like, United States is anti-democratic, it's totalitarian, and it's all bad. And it's like, yeah, but you're still kind of defending the Soviet Union. Um, like he says that you don't have a choice in America. Like you guys do have a choice in voting in the Soviet Empire. Also, how he paints the West, in particular the United States, is the Saturday morning cartoon villain. Like it got to almost to the point of hyperbole, where it's like, oh, America's guilty of this and guilty of that, and it's like, why don't you throw kicking kittens and drowning them while you're at it? We're just evil. We're just bad. And I don't think any situation is exactly like that. And I don't think the United States is necessarily evil. There are certainly evil people there, but let me take a look at my notes. Oh, I think what he's running into is where you have this laziness or a mental illness where you have people who are trust fund babies and never have to work, never have to deal in the real world, end up becoming our leaders. I think that not only him, but I think everybody else has kind of got a problem with that. I can't imagine what it's like talking to Biden. I can't. I don't even think Putin or Biden have talked, but could you imagine that guy? Here you got a former KGB officer, judo champion, dictator took over, and for whatever you may think of the guy, did a pretty damn good job of handling the migration out of the Soviet collapse into Russia. Is it corrupt? Yes. Did he probably really get elected? No. But at the same time, like even I understand sometimes you need a strong man to make sure the laws are enforced and the trains run on time. Oh my God, you know what that reference is? Yes. So could you imagine? I'm just saying, a real man versus this. Literally, Joe Biden, the only thing he did was play college football, and he went right into politics. That's it. When you have a bunch of trust fund babies who got nothing else, they do become debauched. They got nothing else to live for. They really just, and then they got delusional expectations of how the rest of the world works. So I could see where that laziness and that, oh, well, we don't want to work. I just want to get reelected. Like they don't actually govern for the people, let alone in fairness when it comes to international relations with other countries. I could see where that would piss off some people and step on some people's toes. But I wouldn't chalk it up to eat like, oh, America. I mean, dude, we go through a president every 4 to 8 years. American people don't know what they want. Like, oh, this guy's shy. Oh, vote for the sexy black man. I'm gonna say, vote for the pretty black man because we're told to. Okay. What? We're bad because we're white? Okay. So I mean, how much of this is evil, which I would call an unfair diagnosis, versus how much of it's just stupid and lazy Americans who've had it too easy for too long? Really, what do you think it is? I talked about the plundering of the Soviet Empire. Going back to World War II, he again lost a lot of credibility, well, respect or faith, whatever you want to call it. Talks about how the United States is the only country to to use atomic weapons. Never mind, you stole them. We had this whole nuclear arms race thing. And he talked about how we bombed British and the United States bombed Dresden, among other And there was the Tokyo fire bombings too. You forgot to mention that. But Russia was just wonderful in World War II. There was no pillaging or forcible bedroom, not fun time. There was, oh yeah, you guys didn't like violate anyone's Geneva Convention. Like, where'd all those Russian German soldiers go? I don't know, but I bet you it's cold over there. The Gulag Archipelago, which not necessarily World War II, but uh you're worried about, and we're gonna go back to World War II? Really? We're gonna go back to World War II. All right. You know what? You're damn right we bombed Japan. And you know what? They surrendered. Imagine how that works. Oh, this was precious. Criticizing America's aggression in the Korean and Vietnamese wars. Like, excuse me. Excuse me. You do know the history. The North Koreans and the North Vietnamese, the communists are the ones who started it. You were trying to expand your empire. And they used napalm in Vietnam. All right, hey, I got an idea. How about you communists just stay to your little communist country and leave everyone else alone? No, we got to invade. We got to go to Laos and Myanmar. And how did Thailand escape it? I don't know. But Vietnam and look at North Korea. You see the difference between free and not free? Oh my God, they shot the communists who were trying to invade a country. Oh no. And then he uses the word racism, and I don't know if that's lost in translation, but it does not accuses the US of racism. We're here in the United States, we're like the least racist country ever because we just like pride ourselves off of it. We don't even make stuff anymore. We don't even raise our kids. We don't even produce no food. We do nothing. We do nothing but try to prove every day how not racist we are. And I don't know if he was meaning racist against Slavs. He said like racist against Russians. It's like, dude, you guys are white. So I think the use of the word race is either there was a different word or was no other word in the Russian language. Ethnicism, maybe that might be a better word, but I don't know if there's a Russian word for that. I just had to laugh at that. Like, well, yeah, really, go to college, go to school here, go watch any television and news. So then there are some fair critiques and arguments. The expansion of NATO, any attacks on ethnic Russians, I think absolutely that should be. And then his mental illness accusation in America, which wasn't an accusation, it was a description. He's right. And I'd say out of all of that, I'd be more worried about the mental illness because once your culture gets that, once they start thinking they're great and amazing just because of the way they were born and they're victims, and it's over. And I would also say that if your women start to think like they're great and amazing because they're born with a hoo-ha and that men are bad and evil and it's the patriarchy, it's a death knell because they don't have kids. You won't be and in Russia's case, maybe it won't matter because if I recall correctly, their debt situation was not too bad. They don't have a Ponzi finance structure where the younger generation pays for the older generation. I mean, you could have your population go down, um, but your welfare state, if financed off the back of your children, that's not sustainable with feminism. It isn't. Usually they come hand in hand because it's both leftist leaning socialist government welfare programs that pay for it. But once there aren't any kids being born and birthed, then the money just isn't there to support the welfare state. So I'd be worried more generation after generation. I mean, I'm not a big worry. Like, okay, your population goes down, as long as it's like not wiped out. Okay, you got a lot of only kids who inherit a lot of money. I think they'll be fine. But if you're worried about more like extinction or maintaining your culture, yeah, feminism is probably one of the worst things. I'm not talking the equal treatment of women. That's not it. The preferential treatment of women, the worship of women, the oh my God, a girl got a sliver. Everybody stop the presses type of thing that we got here in the United States. I'd say that's part of the mental illness. So, but he didn't address that. He did address like teenagers cutting off their genitalia. So my conclusion about it, the speech was way more complicated than it had to be. It misplaces and overdiagnoses the number and causes of the rift between Russia and the West. It attributes the West's actions to simple evil when it should be laziness and mental illness that comes from trust fund wealth of our people who are in power. It looks to flaws the U.S. And the West has made in the past, which I think is irrelevant, especially, I mean, if it was last week, yeah, okay, those same people are in power. But the Soviet Union was just like, it was just there petting puppies and giving kids ice cream cones. And like, yeah, the Soviets did nothing bad. Um, and the overall speech could have been a lot simpler, I think more effective if it just said, hey, we want NATO out of here and we want ethnic Russians to be protected. That's it. And we'll invade and take over the property. And no one heeded. I wish you would have given like a case by case. Here, we reached out to then President Obama saying, I thought you weren't going to expand NATO. And then we reached out to uh, President or Zelensky saying, hey, there's people like if you showed that, I think uh, you get a lot further. But this is it's sad. It's all a lot of emotion and hyperbole and like, well, you're bad because you did that thing. I'm like, we're bad. What? We didn't start the Vietnamese War. So there you go. So link below is the link to his speech. Also link below is a link to my older brother link, which goes olderbrother.com/donate. You don't have to donate, but linked on that page are links to my Amazon affiliate account if you want to purchase things through Amazon. That way you don't cost you anything more, but you can still donate. I get a commission. And then what else? Oh, Subscribestar, my link, which is a Russian company. I'm very satisfied with it. Subscribestar, I have my road trip podcast behind a paywall. It's a $2 a month paywall. It's not that big, but if you want to have access to it, you can. And then, like, once you listen to all the podcast, you can cancel your subscription. All right, let's go to super chats. Still waiting on my car to get fixed. I can't fix transmissions. I just don't have the tools. I don't have the ability. And it must have been a unique problem because they're still figuring it out. Rusty Fuel, $2. Lend lease, 180 billion in today's currency. Like back in World War II, it's not a lot. Arcady Eichen, $10. Ukraine invasion is unjustified and unprovoked. Yeah, I keep hearing that. Like I normally like what's it called? Kings and Generals. And I like to listen to like, okay, what's going on? Because he does a good job covering the different battles going on. Right off the unprovoked and illegal. Like, wait a minute, just I don't need to know your bias right now, okay? Just tell me what's going on. Now I don't know who to believe because it's I remember like, oh, we're gonna shut down the speech at RT. We're gonna shut it down. I'm like, wait a minute. Can we hear the guy talk? Ukraine is an unjustified, unprovoked as the root beer float, safe and effective. Yeah, I smell BS. I know. I don't like, oh, we can't have you listen to Putin. Why not? Why that right there, how YouTube and Google and all these other places. Oh no, we can't. We're gonna ban Russian websites. What? Really? Mark B. 10 British pounds. NATO was created only to protect sovereign West European countries against the very thing that's happening in Ukraine right now. It's a defense union, not an offensive league. I understand that, but if my history serves me correctly, and my logic certainly does, so the empire collapses. If I recall when I was younger, it was like, hey, they got nukes and they may not have the budget to protect them. We're like, hey, let's send in, hey, there was even a nuclear organization like, we'll come in there, we'll safeguard the nukes. You don't want that falling in the hands of terrorists. And I thought we were at this like, there's Boris Yeltsin and okay, let's help you out. We didn't invade them. We didn't nuke them. And I would think, okay, we don't need NATO anymore. And maybe just a general league, like the border ends at Poland and Germany. Okay, that's enough. That's enough. But why did we keep adding? Why I want to know, why do we keep adding NATO? Why? Was Putin going back to 98, 99? Was he making threatening gestures? Was there an invasion risk? I I know 3 times is not necessarily a charm. Napoleon tried to invade. The Tartars were invading. The Cossacks were invading. The Swedes, you guys don't know about Sweden. Charles the 12th, I believe it was. Charles and Pete went in head to head. Oh man, that's a great epic battle between those two. There's the guy with the funny mustache. There's the guy before him, same country, had a bigger, bushier mustache. Napoleon. I could see like, hey, wait, what does it cost us? Like, hey, all right, we'll leave you. All right, no, no, no. This is it. This is NATO. We're fine. I don't know. Do you want to make some really great vodka and we'll make some really great movies and we'll trade and we'll be friends? Just tourism alone. Just the tourism alone, I would have loved to have gone there. No, we can't do that now. Wouldn't it be worth it now to say, hey, we'll stop expanding NATO. Will you get out of Ukraine? See what happens. And then if he invades on top, then you know he's a liar. But I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian and Russian soldiers have died, huh? This wasn't like giving him the Sudetenland. Now it almost would have to be that situation where he would ask for the eastern part of Ukraine. Beforehand, could have just been, hey, why don't if you don't like it here, what if we bought you land, got you a nice little village across the border? Oh, wholesome DJ Aftershock, $5. Don't mention how Russia deported all the Volga Germans who lived in the Volga River area in Russia to Kazakhstan during World War II. Right. Okay. See, I'm not that. I don't know that much about that. Why did they do that? So they'd build more, or was it after World War? No, during World War II. Mark Ree, 5 British pounds. Don't say we haven't seen it coming. The Russians were net buyers of gold over the last 20 years. Gold is a currency at war. Oh, and China too. I I would think that's just sound fiscal policy. Sorry, not fiscal policy, monetary policy. Just because you're accumulating gold doesn't. Oh, he's going to invade Ukraine. That's what it means. My truth, $2. Did Molyneux return to YouTube? I know. Did he? I hope so. Aries BN Putin, Aaron. Aries something good Putin, Aaron. Raccoon Mexico poops. Raccoon Mexican poops. What's Aries being good Putin? I don't read this. Scrolling. Scrolling. That's it. All right. There you go. That's it. We'll see you guys later. Toodles.